So last week we talked about mission planning and what that can mean. Now that we've done a mission, let's take a look at what we've got. So once you've completed a mission, you're going to have a series of photographs. Now, what can you learn from these photographs? Well, if I take a good look right here, this is after a snowstorm that we had recently, I can see that this tree has been pulled down. But if I go forward a bit, I can see that this tree is broken. So, planning out what I'm going to do come spring, or when I've got a little less snow on the ground, these are things that I will need to take care of. I'm going to have to get in here to this tree and take care of that. So, one of the things that you can do with photographs and how a service like this could make you money is it allows you to see what you need to plan for at a site. Now, this allows us to get into detail because you can pull in very closely and see that this tree is broken, for example. You can see that this tree has been pulled down. This is an overhead view of the trees. You can see that this one's been pulled down. So they may need a little assistance getting back up and being straight. So if I'm looking at landscaping, I may be thinking, okay, these are things that I need to go handle. And what tools am I going to need to do for those? This tree may not be salvageable, for example, and I'll need to bring out stuff to cut down the tree and then take the remains away. Whereas these other ones, like this one down here, might be fine, but it might need some guide work to bring it back up and have it be a normal tree again. So these are things that I can plan out as I go through and look at the photographs from a mission like this. So I could have a drone operator go out. This is going to save me time. It's going to save me trips. I can just look at the photos, see what I need, know what equipment I need to bring out so I've got the right equipment with me when I go. And you might say, well, that's great. It's a series of pictures. I might have a lot of pictures to go through. Correct. So, another thing that we get out of this is those photographs can all be taken together and put into something like this. This is an overview of all of the property that was overflown. You can see the roadways over here, neighbor's driveway, my driveway. You can zoom in. Now, the difference between this photo and the individual photos is this will not allow me to zoom in quite as well as the other photographs. You can see it gets very pixelated past a certain point. And that's because this is a photograph of all the photographs being put together. It's not as detailed as the individuals. So taking the two together, if you see something on here that looks off, you can go use the other photographs and find out more detail using the other photos. But we can go one step further, and this gets more into planning. So far we've talked about just going through and handling changes uh, that are going to have to take place. Again, like fixing this tree here that's been bent down. And there's another poor tree buried under here. So these are things that we can spot in the main picture and get the details from the other to plan out a landscaping trip. What if our goal isn't to plan out a trip, but to plan out an area? So we're not doing we're just going to pop out here and fix, for example, a vacation property before the vacationers come up to use it. But we actually want to plan out a garden. And for that, we need to get a perspective. So what we're going to do for a perspective is we're going to take that image that we had, and this looks like the same image because it is. However, unlike the other image, this image allows us to manipulate it to get perspective on where we're working and what things need to be done. Now you'll notice there's some areas here that are blue. We'll get to that in a bit. But what we're doing here is seeing the perspective of how everything lays out in three-dimensional space. So you can get a better idea of how you would like to lay out your landscaping. For example, I can see that back here have a big open area that would be a great place to plant a garden, for example. And the reason I bring up gardening is one of the advantages that you can get using drone overflights is there's software that will allow you to look at your vegetation and it will rate how healthy the vegetation is. So for example, let's say you have a farm. You can overfly it with drones and see where there's areas that might need attention. Maybe it needs more water, maybe it needs more fertilizer, which in some instances you can handle that with a drone, or you could just go out there. But rather than having to walk the entire property to go see how things are, you can have a drone pilot come in, run a mission, and catch things that are in need of attention before there's a drastic issue. So this allows you to look at things in a three-dimensional perspective. Now, again, this was just an overflight over the area in a couple of directions from a simple polygon mission. But another thing we can do beyond that, if there is a need for it. Now, what you're looking at now was created by MeshLab based off of a rendering out of ODM, which is Open Drone Map. But now let's take a look at this in a different perspective, a very different perspective. 3 dimensions. Now, obviously, the building's not at an angle like this. It just happens to be the way this came out. But you can see the same thing you saw before. There's the house. But now you can see a little bit better where the tree's positioned, the pathways that I shoveled. You can see my propane tank. You can see the front part of the garage. So you can get a feel for where things could be. And taking a model like this, you could actually take vegetation and position it directly on the 3D image, then show it to your client. So rather than just having a two-dimensional image with, okay, we're going to put this here and this here and this here, you could actually show the client how it would look around the building. And you'll notice that even here, I've got some blank spaces because I didn't capture the entire building. Um, One issue you do have with a drone is that sometimes it's hard to get into certain spaces. So while a drone would give a good overflight, and if there's not too much around the building, very easy way to capture the building, but I have trees around this building. And because of that, it's a little bit more difficult to capture because there's trees in the way that prevent me from getting the drone into that particular area. Is that fixable? Yes. Not using a drone, but by going by the shape of the building and then doing a different type of photographic capture, the same thing can be rendered. This is using reality capture, part of Epic Games. So this is where you can wow the client by showing what things would look like in place. So by doing an overflight, you can make sure that you've got the right people and equipment to handle what needs to be done for a vacation home. See what the area looks like around the home to plan out how you would like to handle the placement of things and what would look good around it, which will help you plan out your proposal to your client. And then you can actually show it to them in a three-dimensional to wow your client. If you're a farmer, having a drone pilot come through and overfly your area can help you see where things will need to be addressed. Now, looking at this image, you can see I have some evergreen trees. I have a lot of trees that are not evergreen. So revisiting those come spring and summer will allow me to see what things need to be addressed, what look healthy, what need to be trimmed going into my summer and fall. Again, allowing a view of what needs to be done. Now, you may say, why can't I just go out and walk the property? Well, you can. This overflight of basically just a couple of acres of land took about 30 minutes to do. Generating this map took a little bit longer, but it didn't require somebody to travel other than the drone pilot out to the area to go get this capture. So I could do multiple captures during a day, stack these all up to be run, and then as a deliverable, you get these maps of how the area looks as well as the individual pictures so you can zoom in and see what needs to be addressed. It doesn't require somebody walking through the snow in this case on the property or what could be uh, a soggy area. For example, right in here, right around this tree actually, come spring, that will be a series of ponds. The ground will get very wet. It'll collect water for a month or so. This allows you to get an overview of everything without having to take the time to walk through. And if you've got somebody on your team who specializes in figuring out what needs to be done for the job, then all they have to do is sit back and go through the footage, and they can crank out multiple ones of these in a day because they don't have to have all that travel time and all the time walking around. 30 minutes to capture that amount of area is a lot faster than trying to walk that area. Which gives you more opportunity to have more clients. So that's what I've got for you this week on drone footage. I know this isn't the typical type of drone footage that you see all the time with somebody showing off where they've flown their drone or getting those cinematographic shots. This is a far more practical application, which allows you as a landscaper to get more clients and make more money. And as a farmer, to see if there's any area out in your field that needs attention before it becomes an issue. Again, helping you to make money. So I hope you found this valuable this week, and I will talk to you guys all next week.